everyone, I am Zazubar, and joining me today is my good friend Gorizard. Gorizard, say hi.
Hi guys.
And Adam was actually supposed to join us tonight, but due to conflicts, he couldn't join us, which is really unfortunate because tonight we're doing something that is really cool and really relevant to this month. We're going to be giving our top 5 favorite James Bond films, and that's really relevant to this month for 2 reasons. One, of course, Skyfall came out last week and has been a very large success. I think it's the highest grossing Bond film, or at least opening weekend-wise, right?
I'm sure it is, because that's been the rave since it came out a week earlier in Europe.
Yeah, it did bigger than in Europe than it did here, and even it did huge here. But aside from Skyfall, I mean, usually November is associated with James Bond anyway, which I've never really understood why. It just kind of is. Like, whenever I think November, like movies to watch in November, I always think James Bond, and it's just, I guess the whole public conscience is that way. Because usually the TV network Clue does a James Bond marathon, usually Thanksgiving weekend, but they usually start before that. So it's probably going on right now. I just haven't been watching because I have most of them on DVD already, so I don't really need to watch it. But it just goes to show you that November is kind of associated with James Bond. But the basic idea of this video is from Gorizard and I to give our top 5 favorite James Bond films. Now, I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen all the James Bond films. I've seen everything featuring Connery, Dalton, Brosnan, and Craig. I have not seen all of Roger Moore's films. How about you? Have you seen all of them, or have you been missing a few?
I mean, I've seen a sufficient amount of James Bond films, but I try to avoid watching the Roger Moore films as much as possible.
Fair enough. I mean, the thing is, I like all the Bond actors in some way. I really like Roger Moore as James Bond.
Right.
The films he's in are the problem.
They're like they serve like as the inspiration for Austin Powers more than Sean Connery's Bond ever did.
Well, to be fair, Austin Powers is very much so based on Thunderball. Which, if you Thunderball, you can, when you watch Thunderball, it's almost like the precursor to Austin Powers. But definitely in terms of like the over-the-top nature of James Bond, Moore is the one who made that popular. Because even though Connery started to do that with Thunderball, they very quickly took it back to the grounded spy stuff Fleming was doing in his novels. Moore went completely away from that. But again, that's not his fault. That's just the movies he was in. And Live and Let Die is definitely in my honorable mentions for top Bond films, at least. It's at least like number 8. I really like Live and Let Die. The rest of his films are kind of forgettable, though. But anyways, we're going to get going here. So, I guess we'll just start right into this. So I'm going to start with my number 5 favorite James Bond film. And we're going to start out with one of the most recent ones. My number 5 is Casino Royale from 2006. This is technically the first James Bond movie I ever saw. Well, the first James Bond movie I ever saw where I knew who James Bond was. If you want to be really technical about it, my first James Bond film was actually Die Another Day, which I saw when it first came out on VHS, and my uncle showed it to me. My uncle's a huge James Bond fan, and it was the newest film at the time, so he brought it over to my house one day, and he showed my dad, myself, him, and my mom all watched it. This is back in '02, and you know, I was what would I be? I would be 8 years old when I saw it, so what the fuck did I know? I mean, I watched it recently. It's horrible, but you know, what did I know back when I was 8 years old? I loved it. I just didn't know who James Bond was. I was like, oh, there's some guy running around shooting people. Cool. So I didn't think anything of like just the story and everything. Otherwise, it's really not that good of a Bond film. But technically, the first film I actually, you know, I sought it out to see it. I wanted to know who James Bond was, and I started with a very fitting choice, which was Casino Royale. And I say fitting because it's a reboot to the James Bond franchise. It starts off with James Bond getting his 00 number. It's overall just a fantastic reboot. Like, it is just as successful as Batman Begins was at rebooting Batman. Casino Royale is successful at rebooting Bond because it takes the character back to his roots. It's a very grounded espionage-driven spy film, extremely gritty. All about terrorism and the nature of spying and the nature of killing people for a living, and it's a fantastic Bond film. And it's definitely gotten the praise that it deserves, because a lot of people, I've talked to, definitely put it in their top Bond films, and it definitely deserves to be there. As I said, it's a great reboot. Excuse me. It's got a fantastic cast. There's really only one carryover from the previous Pierce Brosnan years, which is Judi Dench's M, and she totally knocks it out of the park, as she always does as M. And it's just overall a really great Bond film. It's got a really great plot. As I haven't read the novel it's based on, I do intend to soon. I'm getting the omnibus or it's like a box. It's basically a box set for books of all of Fleming's novels, and then I'm gonna knock out all the James Bond novels. And as far as I know, it's pretty close to the book, and it's just a really fascinating, intricate, and a unique plot. I've never seen any other spy film driven entirely around a fucking card game, but it's awesome for it. I love the villain. I forget. I usually know the actor's name who plays the villain Le Chiffre, but I don't know right. I forgot. But
Mads Mikkelsen.
Who is it?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh, well, he's fucking awesome. He is.
I know, he looks like a great Bond villain. He has that signature look of a Bond villain.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. His voice is perfect. It's a very low. Of course, he's got to have an accent. He's got a perfect accent. He's a perfect Bond villain. He's fantastic. I think his best scene is probably either the last scene where him and Bond are playing cards, or it's that torture scene, which is probably my favorite scene in the movie, where Le Chiffre is torturing Bond to try and get the information about the account number and the password to get the money. And he's just fantastic in that scene, and so is Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig is my third favorite Bond. My first two I'll get to later, but he's my third favorite Bond actor. He's just fantastic. He manages to be kind of the best of both worlds of Bond, because people always diverge their likes of Bond actors into kind of the suave ladies' man and then the dark murderer kind of characters, and I think that Daniel Craig balances those two perfectly. He's just a fantastic actor. And the final thing I wanted to mention about Casino Royale is that it's got my favorite Bond girl in Vesper Lynd, portrayed by Eva Green. She is just an amazing Bond girl. The way she interacts, she has perfect chemistry with Daniel Craig. The way she delivers her lines is fantastic, with such authority, such power behind her voice. You just love to watch her and love to see her both have fights with Bond, verbal fights, and just even especially when they're developing their relationship. Just a very great performance by her. Just all around, it's a great Bond film. So it's just fantastic. I love Casino Royale. Perfect introduction to the franchise. So that's then my number 5 is Casino Royale.
I'm gonna have to agree with everything you say here, because I don't want to say too much about Casino Royale because it is on my list.
Ooh, okay.
And I want to give my input on Casino Royale later. But everything that you said about Casino Royale, I completely agree on. It is a terrific Bond film that completely takes the character to his original roots that Ian Fleming intended it to. I haven't read the books, but I guess I'll believe you when you say that the books were more grounded than the adapted films from Connery, Moore, and Dalton, and especially Pierce Brosnan. Yeah, we get a very more realistic, grounded Bond film here, and Daniel Craig really delivers a very haunted and what's the other word?
Tortured.
Caustic and tortured Bond.
Especially in his last film.
Yes. Wait, Quantum of Solace?
No, the Skyfall, I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I'll get to that later. I'm so sorry we keep spoiling our thoughts on our other favorite Bond films. Go ahead, dude, continue.
Yeah, well, I finished because I have more to say about Casino Royale, but I want to get that later.
All right, so what's your number 5?
Go to my list. My number 5?
Yes.
My number 5 is Dr. No.
Ooh.
It was the first James Bond film, and it was ironically the first Bond film I ever saw. I remember back when I was a little kid, like around 4th or 5th grade, there used to be this channel on TV called UPN. And I guess every November they would have this weekly James Bond marathon where they would show the original films, starting with the Sean Connery films. And the first one that they broadcasted was Dr. No. And of course I didn't have anything better to do on Friday nights, so I watched Dr. No, and I liked it. It wasn't the Bond that everybody remembers, the whole Bond in a jetpack in a submarine, the whole thing that basically Austin Powers makes fun of, that everybody recognizes from the Sean Connery era. Now it was it was full of Jamaicans and all this, and had this white guy playing an Asian.
Oh, and, yeah, I forget who the actor who plays Dr. No, but yeah. Well, in the film, don't they say that he's half American, half Chinese or something?
I wouldn't doubt it, because at the time, in the American film industry and even the British industry, they really weren't very optimistic about foreigners playing the lead roles in major films. So yeah, I probably would have been. I would have been surprised if they changed his origin a little bit.
Well, I'm not sure if that's the one he has in the books, because I haven't read the book, Doctor No. I really don't know that much about it anyway, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. Continue.
Right. Anyways, the most memorable thing about Dr. No to me was, of course, Sean Connery and the whole James Bond thing on his first introduction. Oh my god, that scene,
still the greatest time any Bond ever said that. It's just fantastic.
Right. It's the most memorable thing I can think of at the top of my head when I think of Dr. No. And of course, that dinner scene between James Bond and Dr. No when they start talking about Spectre. And I used to remember the full name of Spectre. Was it?
It's a special... I don't know.
Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion.
Yeah, that's it.
It was so ridiculous. It was freaking awesome because it has revenge in it. And
then what Bond says after that is awesome when he goes, I'd probably prefer the revenge quadrant, and then I would immediately go to the task of taking revenge on the man who killed both Strangways and Quarrel, and that's, of course, Dr. No. I love that line. It's so fucking awesome. And the way Connery delivers it is perfect.
Right. Anyways, it's been a long time since I've seen Dr. No, so I can't really say much about it other than all I remember is the, Bond's introduction, Dr. No, and that dinner scene, the showdown finale, and of course, Ursula Andress, who was probably the hottest Bond girl from the Connery era.
Ooh, I'm going to have to disagree with you there.
In my opinion, because I haven't seen all of the Bond film, the Sean Connery Bond films. Believe it or not, I still haven't finished seeing You Only Live Twice.
Oh yeah, that's a great one too. It's just it's a great one too. It's just not amongst my favorites, but it is a good one.
All right.
But my Dr. No is definitely in my top 10. I don't really have the problem with it that a lot of Bond fans seem to have, in that it's very prototypey. That's definitely fair, and it's definitely got some of that, especially with the first ever gun barrel, which it's got like this weird electronic clicks and stuff. I don't know where they were going with that, but I mean, it's the first one. They're doing a little bit of experimenting. They weren't really sure if this was going to be a franchise. It just happened to be really successful. So then they started to adapt more of Fleming's books. But I think even as a prototype first film, it's still really solid. I mean, it's just a really great spy thriller. There's a lot of fantastic scenes. Connery, even if it's his first time, it seems like he's been playing James Bond for 10 years, because he just leaps right into it, and he's immediately the Bond that you know and love. He is I wouldn't call Connery's Bond torture, like I think Dalton and Craig both brought to the character. But he's not exactly the suave, wink and a smile ladies' man that Moore would bring to the character. He's definitely a middle ground, and that's ultimately why he's my favorite. And Dr. No, despite being the first and the most prototypey, I still think it's a fantastic Bond film. So I'm gonna have to agree with you 100% on Dr. No.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be comparing more to this, but I kind of would describe Sean Connery's James Bond as being charming and witty.
Yeah,
throwing those one-liners around.
He's got one-liners for sure. They're just not as obvious as Moore would later bring in them. But I think Connery is the most charming James Bond. Like, he's just so fascinating. It's fascinating to listen to him talk. I mean, sure, he's got a fucking awesome Scottish accent. But he's got a Scottish accent. Sorry, and he just the things he says, the way he's written, just the way he delivers those lines. He is James Bond in my eyes.
Right, he's just so natural with this character.
He just leapt right into it, and he immediately established the Bond that would define the character on film.
Right. I don't know if you knew this or not, but quick fact to anybody who doesn't know: Sean Connery actually wore a wig during the Bond films. This is what I've heard from. Yeah, this was around the time when he began balding. So, for all of the Bond films that he made, he started wearing wigs.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I saw that on the special features for Dr. No.
Oh, wow. I knew that he had to after You Only Live Twice because he was just getting older, but I didn't know he even did it for the early ones.
Yeah, he did it for Dr. No. I remember because before he got hired to play Bond, I think it was Albert Broccoli or Harry Saltzman. One of those two didn't have faith in Sean Connery. They had their eyes set on, other potential actors like Cary Grant and many others. Because he was balding, they didn't think he was a good candidate to play Bond. But once he put the wig on and did an audition, they were convinced and got him to play Bond.
Yeah, and thank God they did.
Right. All right, so that's my number 5.
All right, awesome. I completely agree. Dr. No's in my top 10 at least. I'd probably even put it at number 6. I love Dr. No. So my number 4 is kind of a controversial film amongst Bond fans because Timothy Dalton, man, the guy cannot just be settled on. You either love him as a Bond fan or you hate him. I fucking love Timothy Dalton as James Bond. He's my second favorite James Bond. And the reason is because he is so much fun to watch on screen. And everything that people say about Pierce Brosnan's Bond, I would put to Timothy Dalton. He's very compelling on screen. He's filled with sophistication. He's just so much fun to watch. And my favorite film of his, and my number 4 pick for my top 5 favorite Bond film, is License to Kill, which is his second and final performance as James Bond. He got robbed out of playing the character more than twice because unfortunately, License to Kill is so controversial. One, because it's a really, really dark Bond film. Like, really. And then also, it's the lowest grossing James Bond film. And a lot of people attribute that to both the fact that it is so violent and also the fact that
it was PG-13.
Yeah, and they had to cut scenes out because originally it was R.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they had to cut stuff out. And I even think then that it doesn't really, even I've seen the uncut version, it doesn't really reach R rating in my eyes, but whatever, I guess we're desensitized nowadays. But it's just, it got robbed of a really great following because it is a fantastic Bond film. It manages to really see, the thing I like about Dalton's Bond, and people always bring this up when they're talking about why they like Dalton as Bond, he is definitely the closest Bond to the books, and that's intentional. He came into the role, he was a big fan of Fleming's character. He was offered the role right after Connery quit, and I think even before they gave it to Lazenby. And he said that he was too young, though, that he didn't think that he could fit what Fleming, the character that was described in Fleming's novels, and also even just follow up what Connery had done. So he said, I just can't do it right now, I'm too young. And just that shows that he's a Bond fan, like a hardcore Bond fan. Like he's turning down a job just out of respect for the character. And the other thing is that he was such a fan of the books that when he definitely liked the Roger Moore era, but he didn't think that was Bond. So when he got the role in 1987 with The Living Daylights, which by the way I love both films, but I just had to put License to Kill over The Living Daylights. And even in The Living Daylights though, he wanted to play a Bond who was the tortured murderer, but he doesn't want to be a murderer of the books. The character who really is a great assassin but hates doing it for a living. And that's demonstrated in The Living Daylights when at the beginning of the film when he denies, or he just flat out refuses to shoot a female sniper because he doesn't think that she's a professional. And he says, the guy who he's with says that he's gonna have M fire him because he disobeyed an order. And he says, fine, he'd be doing me a favor. And clearly establishing that he wants to play it closer to the books where Bond hates killing. And that's why I love Dalton's Bond. There's such a different layer to him that we don't get with even with Craig's Bond, we don't really get it. It's definitely in there, but it's not as pronounced and not as just sad
as Dalton's.
Yeah, it's not as sad as Dalton's is. And you get that License to Kill as well. But really the big reason I love License to Kill is that it's a really personal story for Bond. It's a revenge film. It's basically what everyone wanted Diamonds Are Forever to be. It's Bond going after a bad guy because the bad guy did something to him personally. And of course, a spoiler alert, that's, well, I suppose this is a spoiler alert anyway, but Felix Leiter, who is of course a long-running Bond character, he's in Dr. No even, and he comes up through this, he gets maimed by a shark because of a drug lord named Sanchez getting captured because of Felix, and he takes revenge on Felix by feeding him to a shark. But this happens to occur on Felix's wedding day, so his bride named Della, who Bond is very much so close to, he's just great friends with both of them, and they both treat him like a member of the family kind of thing, and he's just very close to them. They rape her and then kill her. So of course James is not exactly thrilled with this, and Felix doesn't die. He just he loses his leg, and he gets one of his arms just completely. It's basically unusable, and Bond of course just vows vengeance on Sanchez, and the rest of the film is him just using his skills. I mean, that's really the thing that's awesome about License to Kill, is we get to see Bond at his very peak. He's not only really pissed off, but he's at the peak of his spy career, and he just puts that on display with License to Kill. There's not a lot of gadgets in this film, and even when they start to introduce a lot of gadgets when Q shows up later, he still mainly is using his skills as a spy and as a military guy. Especially as a spy later when he's trying to infiltrate Sanchez's operation. Just overall, it's a great film displaying both Dalton's acting talents with the character, and also displaying the character's ingenuity. And also, it's one of the grittiest of the entire franchise. It's on par with the Craig films in terms of grittiness. But overall, I love License to Kill. It's my favorite of Dalton's two films. Dalton is my second favorite James Bond, and it's a fantastic James Bond film. So that's number 4 is License to Kill for me.
I have to agree with you. Although License to Kill is not one of my favorite Bond films, it is one of the many few that I enjoy. Mainly because of Timothy Dalton, of course. He delivers a fantastic performance. I loved him in The Living Daylights, and it was a pleasure to see him again in License to Kill. And it's very sad that it was his final time to play Bond. I think he deserves more. He deserved more time to play Bond than Roger Moore, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, his character had depth, and you wanted to see the production team run with that. He only got 2 films to really bring it to the surface.
Right. With The Living Daylights and License to Kill, what Dalton brings to Bond is you just want to see more and more. You're not left satisfied at the end of the film. You just want to see where Dalton's Bond goes on from there. Not as in a direct sequel what they did with Quantum of Solace, but more well, let's see how he goes in the next one. Let's see what he's been through.
It's very much so, let's see this Bond deal with this situation, because he's got such an emotional complex. It's interesting to see him deal with these different scenarios, whether it's being forced to shoot a female sniper, going after a drug lord for revenge, all these different scenarios. You just want to see Dalton's Bond react to them and deal with them. But the other thing, and this is the big reason why Timothy Dalton is my second favorite Bond, is that he's got that charm, he's got that sophistication, he's got that fun-to-watch characteristic that all the Bonds have, but then he's also got the emotional tint, so that's why he's my second favorite. Right.
And he also looks like a person who could play Bond.
He looks just as I picture Bond.
Right. Well, I got nothing more to say to License to Kill, but...
On to your number 4.
My number 4. My number 4 is, coincidentally, also a Timothy Dalton film. It's The Living Daylights.
I almost put this on here, but I like License to Kill a little more, but go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to have to come out and say this. I mainly liked The Living Daylights because of the opening song by...
Oh my god, isn't it fucking awesome?
Yeah, it was the most catchiest and singable song in the entire Bond series.
It's awesome.
Of course, besides the Skyfall song, but you can't count it now because it's very recent. But anyways, I like the film too, not just because of the song. The song is the main reason, but I have also other reasons for it. But
great reasoning for a great movie.
I know, but also because of Timothy Dalton's performance in The Living Daylights. He plays it with great seriousness, not as much as he does in License to Kill, obviously, but he brings a lot of energy and excitement and some weight to the character in The Living Daylights. The particular scene where they have this skiing battle or skiing chase is very reminiscent of the early Bond films, especially on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, definitely.
Me. Right. And also the action scenes weren't that bad, but I really didn't like the showdown finale. It kind of seemed too Rambo 3-ish with the whole Middle Eastern setting and riding the horses and stuff, but it still set kind of like the some of the standards of having that final showdown in a plane and throwing the bad guy off and all that stuff, yada yada yada. But I have nothing more to say about The Living Daylights other than that, because I haven't seen it for a while, and those are the main things I remember from the film. I saw it on cable TV, I think, on Encore Action.
Yeah, I have the film on DVD, and I watched it less than a week ago. It is a great Bond film. Dalton is, again, he's fantastic in it. He really sets the stage for what he was going to do with Bond. Just, again, a character closer to the book, the very tortured character. The thing with The Living Daylights is that it's got an amazing first 40 minutes. And the rest of the movie really does not live up to that first 40 minutes. It starts to not really degenerate into something worse, but it's not as exciting as those first 40 minutes. There's not as much going on. I really do not like the desert part. I don't really like the villain, the guy played by Joe Don Baker. I think his name is Whitaker. I don't like the Russian general guy, Yorgi. I don't like the villains. I don't really care for the plot. It's just I really like the way Dalton plays Bond. I really like the relationship he has with the girl, Kara. Just the first 40 minutes is fantastic, and the last part of the film doesn't really live up to that first 40 minutes. Yeah, I love The Living Daylights for the first 40 minutes, and then it's just kind of a run-of-the-mill Bond film for me.
All right.
So, go ahead.
Well, same for me, because I hardly remember like the second or third act of The Living Daylights. I think I only saw it once or twice, but it wasn't that bad, for me, because I did enjoy it for what it was and for what it was worth. Mainly because the soundtrack saved what was lacking in what I was looking for in this film.
Yeah.
Like you had that small little excerpt from the main theme song of the opening.
Yeah. And the instrumental version of that theme they play throughout the film is great, especially in the opening pre-credit sequence. And let me just say, my two favorite scenes in the film is the pre-credit sequence with that training montage with the 00 section and the paintball thing. And then also, of course, that classic scene where Dalton as Bond blows up a truck and then lands his parachute onto a girl's yacht and then bones her. It's hilarious and awesome and so Bond. But then the interesting thing about why it's called The Living Daylights is that there's an Ian Fleming short story called The Living Daylights, and basically they put the story on film and then built a plot around it. Like the first 15 minutes of the movie is the short story The Living Daylights. And that's really what I like about it, because it's a great short story, and it's just really interesting to have. It's perfect to have Dalton play that, because that's the Bond he wanted to bring to the screen, the tortured one, and it's hands down my favorite part of the film. But the rest of it is really kind of lackluster after that 40-minute mark. But I do really enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. All right, so on to our number threes.
All right, so my number 3 is kind of one I didn't expect to put on this list, but I just had to because it's so fantastic. My number 3 is Skyfall. I was so just blown away by how good Skyfall was. I was kind of considering not putting it here only because it just came out a week ago, and it's still kind of not everyone's seen it. So I'm gonna try and keep my thoughts on it non-spoiler, but which it'll be hard, but whatever. I'm gonna try, because since I don't think everyone's seen it. But it's such an amazing Bond film, and the reason why is because a lot of Bond films tend to just be made to do something new with the Bond formula. The whole villain plot, girls, explosions, car chase, final showdown, you know, the opening credit song, all that. You know, and, you know, it's fun, but it's not really, you know, it doesn't make for great cinema, more often than not. There are, of course, a lot of exceptions. I put most of them on this list. And Skyfall is just, it's an amazing film because it does everything that you expect and need from a film to be considered a great Bond film. The girls, the explosions, the car chases. But then it also tells a story with themes, with interesting social commentary, political commentary. It develops and delves down into the character of James Bond. It delves down into the character of M. It delves down into the history of James Bond that's never really brought to the surface in the films, and Fleming only really hints at in the books, which is, of course, that his parents died very early on in life, left him as an orphan, and he really couldn't think of a thing to do with his life until he became, you know, first a military guy and then a spy. He devoted himself to his country, and Skyfall delves into that. It's still mostly, well, the last act is more than hinting, but it's still mostly, you know, it doesn't come right out and say, you know, I'm James Bond, this is why I do what I do because my parents died. He's not Batman, but it's still amazing. The way it's done is perfect. This is easily my favorite performance by Daniel Craig as James Bond. He does so much with the character. Just like I said with Dalton, he manages to pull off every angle that you need from a great Bond, the charm, the sophistication. But then, of course, he's also got the part that I find interesting with Bond, which is the tormented killer. And well, you don't really get the tormented killer thing with this. It's more of him not really loving being a spy, and we get that with his regret and just a reproach towards M for what happened at the beginning of the film when he gets shot. And you know, he's getting sick of being a spy, and it's a really dark, very, very dark film. I don't think the word dark does it justice. I think it's even darker than License to Kill, just because of how, like, it doesn't romanticize everything, which is weird to say with a Bond film, because that's, you know, it's everyone always expects Bond to be over the top. Skyfall comes right out and says that James Bond is an alcoholic. Comes right out and says that he's a substance abuser. You know, it doesn't romanticize anything. It just comes out and makes Bond more human than he's ever been. And it's just, I could spend an hour analyzing Skyfall as a Bond film and just gushing over it because I love it so much. But I'll try to briefly say why, just to kind of finish up why I love it. Gorizard, you already alluded to it, the fucking theme song is awesome. The opening credits sequence, fucking amazing, one of the best of the series. Just everything about this movie is fantastic. Another thing that it got perfectly, this is of course the 50th anniversary of James Bond, the references were awesome. All of them.
Yes.
They were awesome because they were all perfectly implemented into the film. They all had a purpose. They all built the film up as what it is and all fit into the story. One example of a Bond film that was having a lot of references but didn't really succeed in weaving into the film was Die Another Day, which it has a lot of references in it, just none of them fit into the film. Skyfall is the complete opposite. The film seems to be built around not built around the references. The references seem to be naturally built into the film. And, of course, it being a dark exploration of James Bond, that's welcome. But as dark as the film is, it's also really entertaining. It's got some really funny scenes in it. The cast is even better. It's even more impressive than Casino Royale. The Javier Bardem, oh my god, he is awesome.
Brilliant. Brilliant performance.
Absolutely phenomenal performance as Silva. He is a phenomenal Bond villain, one of the best. He deserves to be up there with names like Blofeld and Dr. No, and just you know, all these classic, fascinating Bond villains. He deserves to be right up in there. Just go ahead.
I think it's safe to say that Javier Bardem Silva will be the most recognizable villain in the Daniel Craig era.
For sure. I mean, he's just wow. I'm gonna admit, when I was watching the film and they're dancing around the fact that Silva's not his real name, I said no spoilers. Fuck it, we're gonna do spoilers because Gorizard and I have been kind of itching to talk to each other about this movie. So if you haven't seen Skyfall yet, don't go on beyond this point, or just skip to when Gorizard talks about his number 3, and then when we talk about our 2s and 1s. I thought he was going to be Blofeld.
I thought it was going to be Jaws.
Oh yeah, I guess that could have worked too. He kind of has Jaws' face too. Well,
it's because he looked like Jaws when he took off his artificial teeth. I was like, what the hell?
I actually thought
Jaws?
Yeah, I actually thought he looked a little bit like Blofeld like that. I mean, aside from the fact that Blofeld has teeth, but just with the way the side of his face sunk in, he looked a little bit like Donald Pleasance's Blofeld. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm perfectly fine with him not being Blofeld. It would have been cool. Of course, it would have been a better, like one of the best, if not the best reference in the film. But I'm fine with it not being Blofeld. They do kind of really hammer it in that it might be, though, because they dance around that Silva's not his real name. They build up to the reveal of his real name, and it's really just like, oh, okay, that's his real name, whatever.
Tiago Rodriguez.
Right. And it's just like, oh, so it's not Blofeld. And then also he's talking earlier on about being this ghost organization that no one knows about, but they can basically take over the world without ever firing a gun. I'm like, Spectre, anyone? So I was like, he's the perfect setup to be Blofeld. He's got the hatred for Bond. Him and Bond have amazing conversations. And
yes, especially the part where I guess he threatened to have sex with him or something like that.
I find it interesting to think that there's multiple ways to interpret that scene. Of course, the immediate thing is it's got gay overtones, but I mean, Silva definitely strikes me as a gay character, and he probably is homosexual, but I don't think that scene is supposed to be taken that blunt. I think it's more of Silva almost died and evaded death, and Bond evaded death. So I think that's supposed to be the point, that they're both these basically undead remainder of the spy world, the remainder of M's mistakes. And they're just kind of... I think that Silva's talking about this being Bond's first time that he's died. You know what I mean? When he says, what makes you think this is my first time? You know what I mean? I mean, of course, it's got gay overtones. I like to think that there's some more complex things going on in that scene, though, because it's got that kind of tone to it. And it's a very creepy scene, because a lot of it is one take. Well, mainly the big one is when Silva comes out of that elevator and he starts talking about the rats.
Oh, I love that scene so much. There's so much underlying themes that connects between him and Bond. It's brilliant. I thought that monologue was brilliantly written, and I think it would go down as one of the most memorable monologues from the Daniel Craig era. If anything, the entire Bond franchise.
For sure. And then also my favorite scene in the movie is when Silva brings up Bond's profile. Not like a Facebook profile, but like his file inside of MI6, and it's like these personal files. And just he breaks down James Bond, and it's an interesting scene. He talks about his trauma as a child. He talks about the fact that he's difficult to control. He talks about his substance abuse, his alcoholism. It's brilliant. Silva's an amazing Bond villain. He's up there with Blofeld for me. He's just a great Bond villain. So Skyfall is just a genius James Bond movie. It's just amazing.
This is not a complaint for me. I mean, I just wanted to point this out. Javier Bardem has a heavy Spanish accent, and before I saw this movie, I don't know, but for some reason I was expecting a deep, growly accent like he did in No Country for Old Men.
I was too.
But how he says his line in that deep Spanish accent works, because it gives the character this sympathetic substance. There are times in the film where you feel sorry for Silva, and at times you actually feel like you should root for this character, because he deserves his revenge.
He survived cyanide. I mean, just wow! It's incredible. I mean, he manages to be the perfect Bond villain in many respects, because he is very over the top, and it works for him because there's a reason why. There's a reason given why he's so over the top. Because his brain is all fucked up. But then also, he's got that sympathetic stuff that Gorizard was talking about. He survived taking a cyanide pill because he didn't want to divulge any of M's secrets. He survived death, and he takes that as a sign that God or whatever deity he believes in wants him to take revenge on M. He wants Silva to destroy the world that betrayed him. So it's just a fascinating character. Just the perfect Bond villain for me. So I love Skyfall. Fantastic film. I mean, it's an amazing Bond film, but it's also just a great piece of cinema. So
yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So what's your number 3, dude?
My number 3 is GoldenEye. Ooh. The first and best of the Pierce Brosnan films. I like to categorize all the James Bond films by, different takes. The Sean Connery one, I like to think of him as the charming, suave Bond. George Lazenby, I can't really say much about him because he's only got one film, and I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Roger Moore is more like the light-hearted, campy side of James Bond. Timothy Dalton's obviously the realistic, grounded Bond that I believe Ian Fleming intended to envisioned initially. And of course, Pierce Brosnan is the action hero Bond.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and Daniel Craig's the cold-hearted killer Bond that we all wanted to see. But anyways, I'm a huge action nut. I think there's no lie about that.
I don't think there's any mystery at this point that Gorizard.
It's not a mystery up to this point.
No, not at all.
Before the Daniel Craig films, I loved the Pierce Brosnan Bond films, and I think Pierce Brosnan was my favorite James Bond because mainly he's the modern day James Bond, and he's the action hero. Mm-hmm. The Pierce Brosnan Bond films are pure action films. They have more action than any other James Bond film, I believe. Usually, the Connery films, the Moore films, the Dalton films, they're all talk. But the Brosnan films have a ton of action, almost like every 10 minutes, I believe. That may be an exaggeration, but I'm trying to get a point here. But GoldenEye was probably the best out of all of them. All of the subsequent Brosnan films, like Tomorrow Never Dies, Die Another Day, etc., they're all action extravaganzas. But with GoldenEye, it is that, but it's an action movie with substance. Because, of course, I do believe that Eon Productions, they approach every new Bond with a new actor very cautiously because they have no idea if it's going to work, if audiences and fans are going to react well to the new Bond. So they treat the first film with cautiousness. They do their best to make a great Bond film. They put all their efforts into it, and they did that with GoldenEye. They obviously didn't do that with the rest because they're just pure action films. But
yeah, I don't like any of Brosnan's other films. I love GoldenEye, though.
Yeah, GoldenEye is it's high-tech, it's action-packed, and it's very urbane. It's something that you'd expect to happen in what would happen if James Bond existed today. And, of course, I'm talking about the 90s at the time.
Yeah, and the film deals with that, too, greatly.
Right. I do love the fact that he has this relationship with what's the name of this character? Alec Trevelyan, played by Sean
Alec
Bean.
Trevelyan, 006.
Yeah. I do love that friendship turned rivalry between them. It's very fantastic. And when James Bond is reunited with 006 halfway into the movie, around the second act, I think. Mm-hmm. It's very, very intensifying because it almost feels like this. We almost feel that this relationship between them matters. It does matter because it makes you feel like you care about these characters. And when they turn against each other, it's kind of like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's almost like between James Bond and Silva.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Trevelyan is definitely kind of like the what's the word? Like the blueprint for what Silva would be.
Right. Except this one's the British version.
Well, is Silva supposed to be British? I doubt it. because they don't really hide that Spanish accent. Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I love GoldenEye as well. It's a great film. Easily Brosnan's best film. I don't really like any of his other Bond films. Tomorrow Never Dies is okay, but GoldenEye is fantastic. My favorite idea of the film is that what is James Bond without the Cold War? You know, it's just like, you know, the Cold War ended years before this, and you know, it's the fall of the Berlin Wall. And, you know, is there a need for James Bond after that? And GoldenEye's like, yeah. I mean, look at our world today. You still need James Bond. And I even think a Skyfall deals with that as well. Yeah, that's why I love GoldenEye. And again, Brosnan is a fantastic James Bond. Like, he's right below, but barely below Daniel Craig for me. He is fantastic.
Right. Well, I mainly liked Pierce Brosnan initially because, you know, he was like a fantastic action hero, but he brings a fantastic take on a modern James Bond. He brings like that same charisma that Sean Connery brought to his Bond.
Definitely. And again, he just like I think Dalton does, though I think Dalton does it a bit better. He brings nearly every aspect to what you would expect Bond to have. The only thing he doesn't really have is the cold-hearted killer thing. I mean, he really just kind of doesn't care about killing people. It's just like, oh yes, I'm James Bond. Of course I have to kill people. You know, that's kind of how Brosnan plays it off. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, again, as Gorizard said, they're mostly action films, and of course, in action films, people generally die. And if you draw attention to that, you're kind of going against the action. I wouldn't really call Brosnan's films spy films. I mean, of course, just by the sheer virtue of them being Bond films, they just get categorized as being spy films. Though there's not much spying in them, there's not much espionage. It's mostly just Brosnan, go here and blow this up. Again, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just I don't particularly like that with my Bond film. But even then, GoldenEye is fantastic.
Right. Brosnan his Bond is a little bit more sensitive in a way, more vulnerable and psychologically complete, because even though he spends most of his time fighting henchmen and blowing things up, you know, he does bring a very good compelling side to James Bond. And that's what I love about every take on James Bond. Every take is different. Every performance stands out on its own. It's not an imitation of another one.
Even Roger Moore.
Yeah. And Pierce Brosnan, he just, you know, delivers this terrific modern version of James Bond. This is exactly how James Bond would be if he existed in the real world. In the 90s, I mean. Yeah,
in the 90s. You know, yeah. He would be this, you know, he would be going around blowing up, you know, satellites and such. Yeah, GoldenEye is a fantastic film. Easily my favorite of Brosnan films. It's probably my number 7 James Bond film. So yeah, I love GoldenEye. I really don't have much to say about it beyond that. But anything else you want to say about GoldenEye?
No.
All right. So now we're going to be moving on to our number 2s. My second favorite James Bond film is one that I've only decided upon recently. My number 6 is On Her Majesty's Secret Service from, I believe, 1968. I'm going to check quick because I'm not... 1969, excuse me. Which is George Lazenby's first and only performance as Commander James Bond, unfortunately. Now, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is the black sheep of all of the Bond films. I mean, it's Lazenby's only film. It's not only is it Lazenby's only film, just as a film, it's very differently toned from the rest of the series. I don't want to call it realistic because it's not, but it's not really campy much. There's definitely a little camp in it, but I mean, it was the 60s. That's kind of the 60s in a nutshell. But it's got this very unique tone, and it's really the only one of its kind in the Bond franchise, and that's why I love it so much. That, and also, I think I'm one of the only people who loves Lazenby's performance as Bond. I think he was robbed of playing the character for a long time, like at least 3 films. I would have loved to see him play Bond. And if Diamonds Are Forever was done right, I think he would be the only choice to see James Bond going after Blofeld for revenge. Because this film is just fantastic in that it both explores the character of James Bond, and also it's a tragedy for James Bond, because it really explores that being a spy is not that fun, because you got to pretend to be another person. As he does in this film, he pretends to be a homosexual of all people. He pretends to be a genealogist named Sir Hilary Grey, and he has to go get holed up in Blofeld's stronghold for a while, pretend to be this guy, and try to derail Blofeld's his organization from the inside. But also, it's a love story. Bond gets married for the first and only time, and that's probably the best part about the film, because the character of Tracy DiVincenzo, more commonly known as Tracy Bond, is fantastic, because most Bond girls, more often than not, are just there for eye candy, or there for someone to look at James Bond and go, oh wow, he's a hunk of a man, kind of thing. Tracy is not that way at all. She of course has a great affection for Bond. She marries him, but at first she doesn't see James as much more than just some guy. Like, I love the opening of the film, which is George Lazenby in shadow, which I love the reveal of Lazenby as Bond. It's fantastic, because this was the first film where Connery wasn't playing the character. It's got this great build-up of all the classic cast talking in the MI6 building. It's Q, M, and Moneypenny, and they're just having a conversation. And then M goes, "Where's 007?" And then you cut to the Aston Martin driving in darkness, and you cut inside the car, and you see who is apparently Bond lighting a cigarette, and he's got his classic hat on, he's driving the Aston Martin. And then this car comes zooming past him, and it crashes down into the beach, and of course, being James Bond, of course, he can't turn away from this. He stops his car, and he pulls out the suitcase from Russia with Love, the one with the sniper rifle in it, and he unclips the sight. And he looks down, and he sees this Italian woman trying to commit suicide. She's basically wading out into the water, and is gonna drown herself. And in this great shot, he runs down into the water and stops her from drowning herself. And then in this fantastic fight scene, very grounded, clearly Lazenby was doing his own stunts, he beats the shit out of a bunch of thugs who were trying to take Tracy back. These thugs don't actually work for Spectre, they work for Tracy's father, a man named Draco, who is a crime lord. But also he's a contractor for construction workers, so he's got legitimate business fronts, and that's why Bond doesn't mind socializing with him, being his love interest's father. Wow, I'm going into way too much detail on the plot. I apologize. Sorry about that, guys. It's just I love Honor Majesty's Secret Service. Lazenby is an amazing Bond. He's not my least favorite. Again, guys, I love all the actors. I don't hate Roger Moore. I really like Roger Moore, but he's just my least favorite. I just don't particularly like his take on Bond. Lazenby is above him for me, because I really, really like Lazenby as Bond. Again, I think he was robbed of a multiple performance. This film is just a fantastic James Bond movie. A great, great soundtrack. The opening credits is amazing. It's got this great clip show of clips from all the Bond films. Every single Bond girl is represented in this little like all these images slide down through a martini glass. It's awesome. And overall, this film just really does well to show this as kind of this epic penultimate Bond film, with this being the epic confrontation between Bond and Blofeld. With all these with Bond looking back on his past exploits, looking back on the past Bond girls, and then of course comparing them to Tracy. There's this great scene where he pulls out all of these memorabilia and these items from his different adventures. He pulls out the knife that Honey Rider had in Dr. No. He pulls out the wire that Red Grant used to strangle people in From Russia with Love. I think he pulls out he pulls out something from Goldfinger. I forget what it was, but it's phenomenal. It's an amazing Bond film. I think it's one of the most complex of the entire series. I think Lazenby does great as Bond, and it's the only Bond film where I cried at the ending. Well, Skyfall a little bit, but even this more so, when Tracy gets shot by Blofeld. It's a very tragic ending, and Lazenby plays it perfectly. My only problem with it, The music is not right, because as soon as Tracy dies and they cut away from her face that's all bloody, and they cut to this great shot of a bullet hole through the windshield, they just start playing the James Bond theme. And it's like, that's not very fitting. It's like, it's this great bombastic score over his wife dying, you know what I mean? It's just not right. But that being said, it's still a fantastic film. I would easily give it a 5 out of 5. It's just a great film in general. A great character piece about James Bond, and just a great spy film. So, just that's my second favorite Bond film.
I can't agree with you on that, because I've only seen On Her Majesty's Secret Service once, and that was a long time ago. I don't know if that was one of the films that Adam told us to watch.
Yeah, that's the he considers You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and Diamonds Are Forever to be a trilogy. I think he's right in that, because that's kind of the ones that Blofeld is in, where he's the prominent villain. Yeah, that's the second one. It's Bond versus Blofeld again. So yeah.
Like I said, I can't say much about it.
Yeah,
the only thing I remember from On Her Majesty's Secret Service was, of course, the death scene of Tracy, but I don't remember the James Bond theme playing at the very end. So it's been a long time, so I really can't comment much about the film.
Yeah, but dude, check it out again. It's phenomenal. Like, right next to Skyfall, it's very interesting exploration of Bond's character. I love On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But yeah, that last shot, it's not really a problem. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter that they have to start playing the Bond theme when the movie's over. It just doesn't fit the scene. They should have used different music, but it's not really important. So, your second favorite Bond film?
Yes, my number 2 is Casino Royale.
Ooh, go ahead.
Before Skyfall ever came out, I just spoiled my number 1.
Oh,
anyways, oh, the cat's out of the bag. Anyways, before Skyfall came out,
get the fuck back in the bag, you bitch! No.
Casino Royale was my favorite James Bond film of all times, mainly because it's like you said before, it's such a terrific reboot. I know that this is part of the James Bond franchise, but it completely strips away all the clumsiness and gadgetry that plagued past James Bond films, and delivers a much more gritty, realistic, and very cold version of James Bond we've never seen before. Of course, I'm wrong about the gritty, realistic part. We got that with Timothy Dalton, but this is like
it's different.
This day, gritty and realistic.
It's post 9/11.
Yes, and like you said, with the Pierce Brosnan James Bond, it kind of deals with what's Bond without the Cold War, and here it's quite the different take. It's with 9/11.
Go.
Daniel Craig is just magnificent. He is able to deliver a cold-blooded killer version of Bond, while at the same time stick to the Bond we all know and love. He is capable of seducing women. He is capable of doing his job, but he does it so I guess I'm going to be using this word a lot, coldly. Because that's how I see Daniel Craig's version of James Bond. It's those eyes. There is no humanity behind them. All I see is a cold-blooded, dead-in-the-eyes killer.
Or at least someone who's had that drained from him.
Right.
He's lost his humanity.
I mean, Daniel Craig, he's the perfect actor to completely portray a tortured and haunted Bond, because, you know, he has those eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And, I don't mean to point this out. Is he the first Bond to have the first Bond actor to have blue eyes? Oh no, never mind. Roger Moore.
Did Roger Moore have blue eyes? Maybe. If so, then he was the only other actor. But maybe. Because everyone else has either brown. Yeah, all the other actors have brown. Who the fuck cares? I guess is the point where she gets.
Because aside from Timothy Dalton, Daniel Craig's eyes are just very mesmerizing. There's something about his version of Bond that just draws you in. And I hate to tell you this, but I don't like Eva Green. I mean, she's terrific.
Blasphemy.
She plays a good Vesper Lynn, but she is not my favorite Bond girl.
Dude, she is fucking hot as shit. I don't care what you say. No.
I don't think so.
I don't care what you say. She's fucking gorgeous.
You know me, I love Asians.
I know, but dude, she's still gorgeous, even despite that.
She's cute. She's cute. I'll admit that. I wouldn't tap that, though.
Oh, okay, so now we're going to get to that.
Given the choice, I wouldn't tap it.
Okay, but as a character, she's at least...
Okay, as a character, she's good. And she's
But aside from that, no, I don't like her. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That's all that matters of Bond girls is how hot they are now.
Yes!
Oh, well, for most people.
Isn't that the point?
Well, for most people. I don't know. That's not the point for me.
All right. Well, anyways, Mads Mikkelsen, he plays a terrific Bond villain. Of course, he is somebody else's bitch, but he stands out on its own.
He doesn't play himself like a bitch. That's the cool thing.
I know that's the thing, but he's under like the control of some African.
Yeah, he's under the control of the terrorists whose money he has.
Right. His girlfriend's hotter than Eva Green. Ivana Milicevic, who plays Valenka.
Yeah, her.
I think she's hotter.
Yeah, her. Who has like 3 lines in the whole movie.
I know. And she's in the promotional posters too. I'm like, what the fuck?
What, is she?
Yeah, she is.
Oh.
Like in a couple of them.
I did not know that.
Anyways, I guess I said all I needed to say when you brought up Casino Royale. Damn it!
Sorry.
I said too much.
I said everything.
I love Casino Royale is because it's a terrific reboot. It's a great take on a cold, haunted, and tortured Bond. And Daniel Craig just silenced the naysayers back in 2006.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if I were following, I wasn't following the production for this film at all. I'll be honest. If I was the Bond fan that I am now, and was following Daniel Craig getting the role, I would probably have said that's a horrible idea. He looks nothing like how I envisioned Bond.
It's ironic too because back in 2006, fans were pissed as hell.
They were fuming.
If you go look at the Casino Royale trailer, which was uploaded to YouTube in 2006, and read the comments, there is so much hate for Daniel Craig. And ironically, today, Daniel Craig is now considered the best James Bond to date.
By a lot of people. I mean, I still prefer Connery, but I mean, he's my third, and everyone has the Bond they grew up with. He's the Bond I grew up with. You know, he is the Casino Royale was my first real Bond film, and he just defined how I look at James Bond. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, my bad.
Anyways, he's my favorite James Bond of all times. It used to be Brosnan and Sean Connery, but now it's him, thanks to Skyfall.
Ooh, we'll get to that. You'll get. I already have my.
I'll get to that.
I already raved about Skyfall, so
yeah. Right.
I already said everything I need to say about Casino Royale. It's an amazing James Bond film. It's a great reboot. I love all the modern espionage stuff. It's just very, very well done. Great plot, great cast. Just an overall phenomenal film. So, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I mean, since we're on the subject of Skyfall, might as well go into my number 1, which up to this point everybody already knows that it's Skyfall.
just go for it. I'll give my number 1 last. So go ahead.
All right. Well, Skyfall, yeah. Come on, how can you not love it? It's a terrific Bond film.
It goes beyond being terrific. It's genius.
They completely redeemed themselves from Quantum of Solace, which I didn't like that much.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say this quick. I sorry to interrupt you again. I just wanted to bring this up quick. I like Quantum of Solace quite a bit. I know a lot of Bond fans hate it. I can see why. It's not great, but it's still really good. I mean, in my opinion at least, I just think it's really well made. I like the villain. He's nothing spectacular. I mean, he's no Silva, but I mean, I still like him. My problem comes with the editing and with the story. The story is really kind of lackluster, and the editing is horrible.
I would semi-agree with you. I don't love it. I kind of like it. The problem with Quantum of Solace, personally for me, is that at times it seems like it's trying to channel the style of the Bourne films.
I've heard that, and I can definitely see that. I'm not sure if I fully agree. Now that I've seen the first Jason Bourne film, Isn't that ironic that they have the same initials? You know, but I can see that. I don't really think that hurts the film at all. I don't know. It's a modern spy film, so.
It's not that it hurts the film. It's just that it's not what you expect from James Bond. And of course, this is a complete direct sequel to Casino Royale. And I don't know if that was the mistake that they made for this film.
I don't think
Quantum of Solace.
I don't think it was, because isn't that what we wanted from Diamonds Are Forever? I mean, we wanted to see Bond take revenge on Blofeld, and now we finally got to see revenge. Excuse me, that was horrible.
Revenge.
Bond.
And I'm taking that word.
Bond.
Revenge.
Bond take revenge on Quantum. My bad. And that's what I want. I wanted to see Bond be pissed, and we saw Bond pissed. I mean, we saw Bond pissed in License to Kill as well. But this time it was almost even more psychological. So that's what I wanted to see. But anyway, off Quantum of Solace, your thoughts on Skyfall?
Yes. Well, like I said, they redeemed themselves from Quantum of Solace, which wasn't a horrible movie, but really not the best Bond film in the series. And with Skyfall, it's quite the polar opposite. It is the best Bond film in the series. We've heard a small number of hate for this film, you and me,
like
and obviously
negative 1% hatred, and it doesn't really even count. Let's not get into it.
On Rotten Tomatoes, the overall consensus for Skyfall is, I believe, 95%.
It deserves it.
Yeah, it does deserve it. It deserves to be up on that scale of 80 to 90%, because it's such a terrific film. It's so well written, well paced, and it's just got an incredible story.
Paced, yeah.
Yes, it's such a phenomenal Bond film, and this is the movie that's gonna make fans recognize Daniel Craig as James Bond. Daniel Craig's You Only Live Twice, or Thunderball, whichever is the most memorable from the Sean Connery era.
I'll get into that in a minute.
Right, but going back to that, this is the most memorable Bond film from the Daniel Craig era. I was about to call him Sean Connery. I always get those two mixed up.
Why? Their names sound nothing alike.
No, it's because their last names begin with the C.
Oh, okay, that's true.
Connery and Craig. It's and that just sounds like a really bad sitcom. Oh God! When Daniel Craig stops playing Bond, he's gonna do a sitcom with Sean Connery. Hey Daniel, come over here. Let's go grocery shopping. I can't do Craig's voice, so...
I can't even... Daniel Craig is impossible to imitate.
I know. You used to think that Christian Bale was impossible, but Daniel Craig is just really impossible.
Daniel Craig has this very... He's one of those actors that has his own voice, but it's one of those voices that's so... I don't know. It's not important. Dude, go back to what you were saying.
Back to Skyfall. Anyways, like I said, it's got a great story, great editing, great performances, and a great script, and of course, an amazing villain. Javier Bardem. I from the beginning, I wasn't very skeptical about him playing a Bond villain.
No, not at all. If nothing else, he is the perfect actor to be a Bond villain.
Exactly. If anything, I was all for it, because after I've seen No Country for Old Men, which is an absolutely amazing film, he could have pulled off a Bond villain, and he does here. He delivers a villain that, dare I say this, we've never seen before. Usually, James Bond's villains, his rivals are very cold and pure evil, and they just make you feel, these guys have to die.
They want world domination. Silva does not want world domination.
Yeah, this character is much more relatable. He is much more humanized than the other Bond villains. He has a specific personal goal, while the other Bond villains have this greedy goal, for world domination, of course. And, of course, when you look at the case of Blofeld, Dr. No, they have all these fancy gadgets to achieve their goals. Silva has modern technology to achieve his goals, and that's what I love about the Daniel Craig James Bond films. It's that it doesn't rely on the silly gadgets that were used in the original Bond films.
Exploding pens, we really don't go in for that anymore.
Oh yeah, and I probably shouldn't spoil this, but I want to anyway. I love that little reference that Q makes to Bond. Oh, and speaking of Q...
oh, God, he's amazing.
I know his last name is Wishaw, but... Ben Wishaw? Is that his name? Ben Wishaw?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, Ben Wishaw, just...
the guy who plays Q.
Yeah, the guy who plays Q. I absolutely love the idea of a younger guy playing Q.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, we already seen the old Q in a lot of James Bond films, but a younger one who's like a youth geek. That's just brilliant. Oh, here we go. Ben Wishaw. Yeah, that's his name. Ben Wishaw. I got that right. And is that really what Q stands for? Quartermaster?
Maybe. I would only question that because it's called Q Branch, so I'm not sure. I know his real name is Major Boothroyd.
Because in the Daniel Craig films, no one gives Ben Wishaw's Q the designation Q. James Bond does.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I would assume that since they call him Quartermaster, that must be what Q stands for. Well, honestly, they mentioned Q Branch in Casino Royale once. And that clearly means that even though that the character of Q wasn't there, that there was something called that. So I'm not really sure how it works in this universe. I know that in, of course, the classic ones, that was just Q was the head of Q Branch, so that's why they called him Q. But it was different here, so I don't know. But I think really only Bond calls him Q. I don't think anyone else does.
Right.
Oh, Moneypenny does.
Maybe because Bond calls him Q, maybe. But anyways, back to the film. Okay, great story, great script, great villain, and also great Bond girl, Bernice Marlowe. Hot. Now that's a hot Bond girl for you.
Yeah, here's...
Oh, come on.
No, she's fucking drop dead gorgeous. Here's the problem. She's in like 15 minutes of the movie.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up now, because at first... when Silva supposedly shoots the glass bottle off her head, and she just drops her head down, I had no idea that she died at that moment. I thought that, shock knocked her out or something, and then when she didn't appear for the rest of the film,
bullets kill people. Died? What?
Yeah, that's what I thought, because her death is not a... You can't tell if she died or not. It almost seems like a...
I thought it was pretty clear that she was dead. I'll be honest.
I didn't think she died because Silva shoots the glass bottle off screen, and so you assume that he shot the bottle off, and she...
No, doesn't he just like aim right at her stomach and shoots it, and that's because the whole what he said to Bond was, let's see who can knock the bottle off her head, and Bond took that as, oh, okay, we have to shoot the little shot glass. And he was just like, fuck that, I'm just going to shoot her so that way it'll just fall. Of course, being James Bond, he can't do that because, he's not fucking evil. And Silva was just like, fuck this. Psh, I win. But I thought it was pretty clear that she was dead.
I did not know that because...
Maybe because you were so, like, fucking... Just like...
Either that or Bernice Marlowe is not that good of an actor. Because I swear to God, I saw some movement when her head was down.
Well, I mean, she kind of went limp, so...
That's why I thought that she was just knocked out. And then when she didn't appear for the rest of the movie, I was like, she died? I did not know that.
My problem with her is that she's introduced to be this like huge force in the film, and then she really serves no purpose aside to get Bond to meet Silva. And then she dies.
And of course, eye candy. And in the promotional marketing for the film, she's presented as this almost like this substantial character, and she's only in the film.
She's like the main Bond girl in the thing. It's like she's in 15 minutes of the movie in reality.
Right. And so then you have Naomi Harris to take up after that, and she's not even there for that long. And
what I've heard people have been saying, and I think this is valid, is that really the Bond girl of the film is Judi Dench.
No.
Well, okay, we're looking at Bond girls like, oh, the girl that Bond fucks. I'm talking about just like the main female lead, which is I think M.
Yes.
So that's why
I think when people think of Bond girls, they generally think of the girl Bond is gonna fuck.
All right, okay, fair enough. I'm just saying, like, the main female lead in this film is definitely not Moneypenny or whatever that other girl's name is. I keep forgetting. It's definitely M. So that's why I consider her to be the main Bond girl.
Probably, I guess, in a different context, but in a traditional context.
Yeah, no. Then in that context, no, and thank God, no.
Although she did try and Die Another Day.
What?
You remember that scene where M makes out with Bond?
You're talking about Moneypenny.
Was that her?
Moneypenny is the secretary in Die Another Day, and she uses that virtual thing to the sunglasses that like cast a virtual image. She uses that to pretend that she's having sex with Bond.
Was that Moneypenny? I remember it being M.
No, it was not M. Trust me, it was definitely not M. I promise.
I'm gonna look that up right now.
Dude, I promise you, it was. If it was M, I'm gonna fucking kill myself right here, right now.
M makes out with Bond.
No, you're gonna get weird shit.
I'm on YouTube right now, but okay, you may have been right. I'm finding shit.
You're gonna get some weird shit.
It's been a while since I've seen Die Another Day.
Yeah, trust me, it's Moneypenny.
All right, take your word for it. I gotta watch that movie again then.
Don't. It's not that good. In fact, the opposite. It's pretty shitty. So is there anything else you want to bring up about Skyfall specifically?
No, other than it's a great film. It's the best Bond film of the series. Before this, people used to say that GoldenEye was the best. Well, GoldenEye had its time. It's now Skyfall that's the best.
Of course, I don't know. I don't know. It's an amazing movie. It's just not my personal favorite, which I will reveal now. So, my number one favorite James Bond film is the film that, in my opinion, defines Sean Connery's performance as 007. My favorite Bond film is From Russia with Love. Oh my god, I love From Russia with Love. I watch it constantly. I've watched it 3 times this week. I love that movie. It just does everything right. It's got an amazing cast. It's got an amazing it's easily Sean Connery's best, in my opinion. It's his best performance as James Bond. The plot is fascinating. It's basically the introduction of Blofeld. This is the first time he appears, though he's not named and we don't see his face, but we hear him talk. And another reason why I thought Silva was Blofeld in Skyfall was that, and From Russia with Love, Blofeld gives this speech about how they're like Japanese fighting fish, because, you know, there's always that one Japanese fighting fish that waits in the corner while the other two kill each other, and then the one that's victorious but weakened, the other one strikes when he's about to die. And he says that the two fighting ones are the U.S. and the USSR, and then that the one in the corner is Spectre, and that when those two are, then one's eliminated and one's weakened, Spectre will strike. And that's the whole point of From Russia with Love, is to finally ignite Russia and the United States in war, to heat up the Cold War, so to speak. As someone in the film says, it doesn't feel like the Cold War is going to be cold much longer, because basically Spectre's trying to ignite the war, and it leads to this very intricate, fascinating plot about deception, intrigue, multiple layers of agents. It's just fascinating. The film is called From Russia with Love because the basic premise is, it's very complicated. I'll outline it briefly. Basically, Bond is Spectre both wants to basically do 2 things. They want to ignite the war between U.S. and Russia, but they also want to take revenge on Bond for killing Dr. No. So they kind of do a double entendre. They have a former head of a Russian secret service, which was basically the main villain basically the main villainous organization in the novels. Spectre wasn't introduced until much later in the novels. Excuse me. And I just totally lost my train of thought. And they're trying to basically ignite that war, and they convince this Russian head to use one of her former agents, a woman named Tanya Romanov, I think is her name, Tanya Romanov, and she wants this girl to pretend to be in love with James Bond, so that way he can bring her to England and basically give false information to the Allies. That's what she tells this girl. The real intention is to again ignite the Cold War. So it's a very fascinating film. Great action sequences, great performances, great characters. I love the Turkish what's his name? The Turkish rug salesman who's actually an MI6 agent. What's his name? But he's really awesome. I love the actor who plays him. I love his delivery. Just overall, it's a fantastic Bond film. My personal favorite Bond film. I watch it all the time. An amazing soundtrack. Just the opening theme song with the actual vocal song from Russia with Love. It's just a great film. She is my favorite Bond girl. The actress's name, I'm going to find out right now, damn it, is... Oh, it's not going to tell me. Is Lotte Lenya? Okay, sure, why not? Lotte Lenya. She's my favorite Bond girl. She's drop dead gorgeous. She's got this very thick and just obsessive Russian accent that just drives me wild. Her and Bond have perfect chemistry. She's a fantastic actress in that she's able to play every level of her character. The double agent, the agent, and then the girl who finally actually legitimately falls in love with James Bond. Just a fantastic performance. Just overall, she's my favorite Bond girl, and it's my favorite James Bond film. So From Russia with Love is my favorite James Bond film.
I have to see that movie because I heard it's probably like the best, one of the best in the Sean Connery era, but I haven't seen it fully yet. I read like the first 30 pages of the novel, but the first 30 pages mainly focus on that the blonde assassin that you see at the beginning of the film.
Let me talk about him briefly. Red Grant. Red Grant is an amazing Bond villain because he starts the tradition of the big blonde-haired muscle guy that Bond always fights in the films, and he's easily the best of those. In that he's played by Robert Shaw, and of course Robert Shaw is fucking awesome. Most of you probably know Robert Shaw as Quint in Jaws. Irony there. And Robert Shaw is an amazing actor. The way he talks to Bond is awesome. Just the way he condescends him, like he's just like, oh, you're a stupid spy, and we're Spectre, and we're gonna conquer the world, And he's playing a sociopath because they established that Red Grant is not really a secret agent. He's a murderer, just a guy they picked up out of a prison and said, hey, go kill people for us. And he does it well. So he's not really even this glorified tyrant. He's just a murderer. And that leads to some very interesting dialogue between him and Bond. Just overall, it's a fantastic James Bond film. Just my favorite. Very entertaining. Wonderfully paced. Great music. Just fantastic film.
Yeah, that's what mainly the book focuses on the first 20, 30 pages is Red Grant, right?
Yeah.
It's his backstory. And Ian Fleming really emphasizes that this guy is really a cold-hearted killer from birth. In his backstory, he used to go outside of town and kill animals.
Oh my!
Because it gave him great pleasure. That's what they say in the book. And he joined Spectre because they gave him the opportunity to murder.
Smersh.
Yeah, or Smersh.
In the novel, it's Smersh. In the movie, it's Spectre.
Oh wow. Anyways, I kind of stopped reading it after that because I had studies, and of course I started procrastinating a lot of things. But yeah, I gotta watch the movie because I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, the movie's fantastic. It's my overall favorite Bond film. So I think that'll about do it for our top 5 favorite James Bond films. So thank you very much for watching. However, I gotta kind of end this video on a depressing note. There's kind of a good reason why I wanted to do this as a chat and why I wanted Adam to be here, because I'm going to be going on hiatus for a while. My YouTube channel is basically going to be going dark, which means that there's not going to be any ZGC for a while. And I'm really pissed off about that because our 1 year anniversary was coming up. It was going to be our 1 year of doing ZGC, but I just don't have the time right now to edit ZGC every month. No time to just, put the show together, which I'm really sad about, but I just can't do it right now. Just my YouTube channel is going to be going dark for a while. I'm not going to be really posting any videos. Maybe scantily, if I have some free time, I'll put something quick together, but otherwise nothing. I'll be making scant appearances in other people's channels, like maybe every now and then I'll pop up on Sid Part 2's channel in the chat, but for now I'm not on Geeky Gentleman. Someone's taking my place for a while. I might pop up every now and then when they do something for Who Reviews the Reviewers, but we'll see. Adam is thinking about doing some chats in the near future. I know he wants to do another Bond one, and I'm definitely going to join that. But otherwise, I'm really going to not be on YouTube for a while. I'm thinking at the very earliest, I'll be back by January, but that's kind of fool's luck if that happens. The main thing is college application, but just also I'm dealing with some personal shit, so I got to kind of deal with that. You guys are all awesome. Thank you guys for sticking with me for so long. I'm not dying. I'm not going away forever. I'm just taking a break for a couple months, so I'll be back. At the very latest, I'll be back by March. That's very, very latest. So thank you all for sticking with me. Thank you very much for subscribing, and hopefully you guys will stick with me through this dark time. And again, I'm not going to be totally dead. I'll be popping up briefly on other people's channels, and maybe I'll post shit if I'm really inclined and I have free time. But otherwise, I'll be going on hiatus. So thank you guys for understanding. You're all awesome. And Gorizard, thank you very much for being with me tonight.
I'm happy to be here. I love Bond.
Yeah, indeed. Me too. So that'll about do it for this Bond video for our top 5 favorite James Bond films. And thank you very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this Action Junkies channel because he posts a lot of soundtracks and a lot of them are awesome. And also he does great reviews as well. So definitely check out Gorizard's channel and subscribe in the description below. And thank you very much, guys, for watching, and we'll see you all soon. I'm Zazubar.
I'm Gorizard.
And we'll see you later.